Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namo Vishnu Padaya
Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namaste Saraswate Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisha Shunyavadi Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadishatarine
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nyam Vishnu Sahakam Yena Bhutale Padamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sujeev Sadvaitam Savdutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Harine Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Namni Gauratvishena Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapati Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavamyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shamasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, your audio is coming as broken.
Acha. Maybe internet connection problem. Hare Krishna, Rama, Hare Rama.
Yes, Prabhuji, it is breaking continuously.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram. Is it okay?
Yes, slightly better, but sometimes in between it breaks.
In any case, we got some revision.
Okay, good.
So somebody wants to say.
Share, Prabhu.
Yes.
Yeah, Prabhuji. So last time we discussed about the three modes of material nature are always situated in constant flux. There is always competition for supremacy.
Right.
Sometimes one mode is influencing over others, but it's not like there is only the mode of goodness. There is a mix. Sometimes mode of goodness would be predominant, and mode of ignorance and passion will be on the left side, and vice versa. So, so that was one point, Prabhu.
Practice and determination can help one get into the mode of goodness.
Yes, very good. Yes, practice and determination to come to mode of goodness. Okay, Samo?
There is no stable situation as far as three mode is concerned. So we have to make the endeavor for Vasudeva state of mode of goodness.
Right.
Lord is very much pleased with that. So that even he side with always demigod because they always do mode of goodness. Yeah.
Somebody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. After death, destination of a person in mode of goodness is higher planets of great
Right.
sages like Brahman, Loka, and Jana Loka. And in passion, birth among those engaged in fruitive activities on earthly planets, and ignorance, birth in lower species.
Okay, good. Yes.
When the influence of modes is not there or it's go away, then he should then the person should be neutral kind of a person.
Yes. We also discussed Krishna discusses some more points.
Prabhuji, we couldn't hear you actually, what you said previously.
Determination is required to cultivate Sato good.
Okay, good.
One is forced
mental speculation versus philosophical speculation. So, mental speculation is psychological analysis of mind, but when you do philosophical speculation, so it is directed by Shastra, and goal is to achieve Vishnu.
Okay.
One has to follow the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master. Because when you are in lower mode, then you need guidance from the spiritual master, just like Bharat Maharaj fall victim to a deer with the station of spiritual master.
Okay.
So one should be neutral to the modes. So we cannot actually control the modes, whatever in the body, because as long as we have this material body, these modes are going to be influencing us. Even in the Baba stage, you explained the story of Jada Bharata and Dhruva Maharaj. So only possibility is we have to be dedicated to devotional service, unflinching, undeviated devotion. Then only it is possible to transcend the modes of nature.
Okay.
Early mornings being in the mode of goodness, it is very good for chanting and doing spiritual activities.
That's true. Correct.
One is helplessly carried out by the three modes, and he never get to know also unless one has the help of a spiritual authority.
Yes. Now Krishna?
Prabhuji, your audio is not clear, Prabhuji.
Now also.
Yes, Prabhuji, it keeps breaking.
Not just breaking, sometimes it is not there at all.
Modern technology.
Prabhuji, can just go to audio and switch off video? Maybe that would help.
Yes, we can try that. Screen sharing, Prabhuji.
Screen sharing. Should we stop?
We can try it out once, Prabhuji, without that. Otherwise, that seems to be the only option right now.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
How's it?
Seems to be better now. We'll get to know as it progresses.
Okay, so should we take questions?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can take questions.
I have an idea. If you want to share screen, maybe you can forward the document to Harikshitra Prabhu or someone, and they can share and follow your instructions. I mean, just one idea. If you want to share screen.
Okay. Let's see how it goes. And now we'll take questions first, and then we will.
By the way, audio is much clearer, Prabhuji, now.
Okay, good. So anyway, let's take questions now. Then we will start the PPT.
Okay, Prabhuji. So,
okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so the Mother Prabhu has a question. Should we take that first?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, how can one remain saved from the influence of passion, act in Krishna consciousness, and to contribute significantly, like in management or opening hotels? Of course, whatever be the service, ultimately the solution remains the same, and that is the rise to the mode of goodness, and then come to the transcendental platform by the proper chanting of the holy name, hearing. So these are the only ways one can stay from mode of passion, ignorance. There's no other way out. So one has to modify one's lifestyle and also be serious in one's sadhana practices. To the degree one is purified, then one will be less influenced by the lower modes. Okay, next, if Jiva has a material desire, one super soul in 3 modes is doing it. Now, wants to transcendental activity like chanting. Who is the doer as the Prakriti is in 3 modes, and chanting is transcendental. So as far as ultimately, as far as spiritual activities are concerned, then spiritual activities are pure activities. So therefore, ultimately, of course, the body function, the body is.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, your audio is completely breaking now again.
Prabhu, you may disconnect and reconnect, Prabhuji, like we can see.
I think it's already disconnected.
Already disconnected, huh?
Okay, no, he is there, but
Hare Krishna?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear now, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay, so should we take this question?
Yes,
Fire,
Prabhuji.
fire is compared to goodness, water and pot to passion, sky is compared to ignorance. Can you please elaborate?
Prabhuji, before that, few more questions had come in. I'll do one thing. I'll post them again so that you can see those.
Anyway, I'm just answering this now.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, we don't want to get into details of these analogies. They're basically from, you can refer to the 7th canto, 1st chapter. Shukdev Goswami gives these analogies, Srila Prabhupada gives purports. So you can read that. Okay, so we don't want to get into too many details of this.
Next is Prabhuji. We have previously taken question from Sakya Prem Prabhuji. I've posted the question again.
Right. So yes, when it comes to spiritual activities also, we desire, the jiva desires, and then Krishna sanctions the desire. And then ultimately, of course, the activity has to be done by the body. For example, chanting. So I desire to chant, but then I have to chant with my tongue and vocal cords, and I have to hear with my ears. So of course, the body made of Prakriti is involved there also. But the difference is that here there is Krishna's special mercy, who's directing all the activities. And so when we have that strong desire, then Krishna's mercy makes things easier. Okay, is it all right? And so even within these spiritual activities, we all have experience as we're doing spiritual activities also, because we are still not on the purified state. So therefore, the modes are still acting. And so we find during chanting also there's influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. So by the influence of the mode of passion, the mind is wandering, one becomes restless. By the influence of the mode of ignorance, one feels sleepy. So you find the influence of the modes is always there as long as one is in the material world. So activities. So then Krishna's mercy helps one to overcome the obstacles being created by the modes. One is taking shelter of Krishna. Is that all right?
Yes, Sakya Prem Prabhuji said okay.
Okay. Person goodness is less scope for sinful life. Okay. People, once they clean up their sinful cottages. Yes. Definitely, a mode of goodness life is more conducive to even come to Krishna consciousness. We were discussing, in fact, when we discussed 728, that time we were discussing that how a person in the mode of goodness is likely to visit various temples, invite saintly people. So then he may also come to a Hare Krishna temple and meet devotees. So definitely somebody in the mode of goodness, his life is more conducive to come to Krishna consciousness. But the jiva is always there. It's more conducive, but it doesn't mean that it's a must. Ultimately, the free will of the jiva is always there. Okay.
He says okay, Prabhuji.
Then, okay. If one is mode of goodness, then only Bhakti Lata Beach will grow, but can chanting is possible? Yeah, chanting is always possible. But then to the degree one is in the mode of goodness, then it'll be possible for one to chant better, as I already said it. So the influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna, then chanting also becomes difficult. But if one is in the mode of goodness, then the mind is able to focus better, less sleepiness. So then one can chant better if one is in the mode of goodness. But at any stage one can chant. There is no problem to chanting, to beginning to chant. But then the more we increase the mode of goodness lifestyle, then it becomes more conducive. And so therefore we are told to rise early in the morning and chant, so that one is more in the goodness, and take a bath, and so all these mode of goodness lifestyle makes the chanting more conducive. Otherwise one can chant at any time. That is true. Thirteen 25 slogan. Krishna speaking about other person. Okay, what was the process explained before? Okay, the process explained before is just a second. Yes. So in the 24th verse, Krishna is saying that one who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, living entity, interaction of the modes of nature, sure to attain liberation. So that's one way. That is by understanding all the philosophy that was spoken. And then these are other ways. Is it okay? Mm-hmm. Can we say Gyan and Bhakti? Gyan was explained before, and Bhakti in the later verses. One can say that it was Gyan. That's correct. Of course, it's Gyan mixed with Bhakti. It's not only Gyan, because Krishna is speaking about Prakriti Jiva and is also speaking about the super soul. So there's some Bhakti also involved there. And in the 25th verse, he's speaking exclusively about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. All right.
This is okay, Prabhuji.
Any other questions?
So far, no other questions have come in.
Okay, fine. So can we begin the 15th chapter?
Yes, Prabhuji. Probably if devotees have questions, they can post. Okay, Anand Prabhu says we had questions from Saturday. Yes, Prabhuji, there were a lot of questions from Saturday. Devotees can ask again if they have questions. Otherwise, I have the questions that were asked on Saturday. Should I start posting them here?
Okay, go ahead.
There were, I think, almost more than 10 questions. Okay, we have a question from Nishant Prabhuji. I'll post them after that.
Okay, till we have a material body, we are in modes of nature, even though if devotees are alive. How we should understand it? Yeah, so as we said that to come to the bhava platform and to become totally free from the influence of modes, it's not impossible, but it is very rare. So it is possible. Jivan Mukta. So that's on the Bhava platform. So it's very, very rare. So that's the point. Till we have a material body, then some influence of the modes is always going to be there. Now to come to that platform of Bhava and Prema is extremely rare. That is the point. It is possible, but rare. All right.
Answers okay, Prabhuji. I've posted a question again from Nishant Prabhuji that he had asked on Saturday.
Why it takes a lot of effort for mode of goodness compared to other modes, if all the modes are unequal? Yes, the simple reason is because we are conditioned to the lower mode since time immemorial. Since time immemorial, we have been influenced by the lower modes. And so therefore, to come to the mode of goodness is difficult. Now, if somebody has been predominantly in the mode of goodness from the last life, now we see this happening. So we see that somebody has mode of goodness sanskaras from the previous life. And so if one has those sanskaras, then it becomes easier for him to take to the mode of goodness lifestyle. And so therefore, and to the degree one is in Rajas and Tamas, then that is also influenced by previous lives of karma. And then to the degree the Rajas and Tamas is more, then it becomes more difficult. So it all depends on what has been the previous influence. But in general, we can say that material consciousness means a dominance of Rajas and Tamas, and therefore to come to Sattva then becomes difficult. Is it all right?
Answers okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, which is the next one?
Are the questions coming as merged, Prabhuji? Are you able to see? Next is, I think,
not exactly merged. I mean, they're readable, no problem.
Okay. Next is by Harikshit Prabhuji, 7:32. I have posted. Our natural state is pure goodness. That one, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Our natural state is pure goodness. Why are we not able to fall back to pure goodness if we don't? At that point, we already explained that yes, because if we don't endeavor, yes, we're obviously going to fall into Rajas and Tamas because that is the default setting in the material world. In the default setting in the spiritual world is pure goodness, but the default setting in the material world is Rajas and Tamas because that is the reason why we're here. Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava. So the very fact that we have come into this material world to enjoy, and the mentality to enjoy independent of the Lord is a symptom of Rajagun. And so therefore, in the material world, that's the default setting. And so if you're not endeavoring for Sattva, then the default setting is Rajas and Tamas. All right?
Answers okay, Prabhuji.
Generally, characteristics like honesty, sincerity, integrity, are they categorized in 3 modes? Yes, so all these good qualities are qualities in the mode of goodness, in which case endeavor and determination by themselves also categorized in one of 3 modes. Yes, and Krishna will be explaining all this in the further chapters. In the further chapters, Krishna will be explaining all this. Action in 3 modes, determination 3 modes, everything will be explained. Okay. Can we infer this endeavor as the use of free will? Yes, perfect. How one can differentiate in terms of feeling between mental happiness and actual happiness? What are the symptoms which differentiate the same? Okay, well, again, Krishna is going to speak about happiness and the 3 modes later on in the Gita. So this will be clarified at that time. Okay, now the next one is what? This Abhayanand.
Yes. Which was the previous one, Prabhuji, you took? Yes, Prabhuji, by Abhayanand Prabhuji. One is distributing books in passion.
Okay, one is the books in passion, but book distribution is mode of goodness. Okay, so everything depends on what's the goal. So again, we'll be discussing these points again in further chapters and further verses. So there's action in three modes. And Krishna will explain action in three modes. Whichever action, whether it's book distribution or preaching or temple construction, any action, when it's influenced by the modes, then what are the symptoms? Krishna will explain. So it'll be discussed. It is fair to say all our acharyas were in Vishuddha Sattva stage. Yes, yes, we can say that. Different individuals have different levels of tolerance, intelligence, different attributes. According to that, one performs certain activities, different. No, the tolerance is not given by the Supreme Lord. It's in the material world, it's influenced by the gunas. So somebody is in Sattva Gun, then he has more tolerance. Somebody is in the lower modes, then he has less tolerance. So everything is dependent on the influence of the modes. So, so that's how different activities are there. All right.
Prabhu, he asks that, so in this case, how Jiva is responsible for the karma?
Because he desired. The first desire is by the Jiva. The first desire is by the Jiva. That's the reason he is in the material world. And then subsequently, everything is a chain reaction because of that original mistake he has made. And so then it's all action, reaction, action, reaction. But then that's the first mistake is the mistake of the Jiva. That's why he's in the material worlds. And then afterwards also, the Jiva always has choice. He always has choice. So that's what we were discussing, that when he submits to the hearing process. So when the person, he comes to devotional service or he comes in the association of devotees, he hears. So who gets that opportunity, how it happens, we'll discuss in Nectar of Devotion. But somehow he comes into the association and he hears. Now, even after he hears, he has a choice whether to submit to it or not. So the choice of the jiva is always there. And so we find so many people come in the association of devotees. All of us have experience. And so we have a one-time program. There are 500 people. And then we conduct the next session. How many come? So it immediately reduces 50, 60, whatever. So everyone heard. 500 people heard the first time. But then 50, 60 decided to come the next time. So that's use of the free will. Use of the free will. So the free will is always there. And so even as one progresses in devotional service, free will is always there. The free will of the jiva is never taken. And so therefore, ultimately the jiva is responsible because he is using his free will to make the choices. But of course, yes, if one is very much in the lower modes, then the choices are also very limited because the overpowering of the modes is very strong. Then when one is in Sattva Gun, then there is more discrimination, more power of discrimination. Then he can discriminate better. But still, free will is always there at every moment. And so therefore, ultimately the jiva is responsible. Does it help?
Prabhu, can we say that the modes actually present a strong case and then the living entity says okay for it? So then it gets into action. Can we say like that, Prabhu?
Yes, that's correct. So when one, especially in Rajas and Tamas, the choice is practically nil. The choice is, even though the choice exists. I think in one of the previous classes, I gave this example that just like if there is a if there is a chronic drunkard, he's addicted to drinking. Now you put a bottle of wine in front of him. What's he going to do? He's going to drink, but at the same time, he has a choice. Philosophically speaking, technically speaking, he has a choice to drink or not to drink. But the influence of the mode of ignorance is so strong that he is 100% bound to drink. So the choice is very less for someone who's more bound by the modes. That is why, if you remember, in the 3rd chapter, Krishna spoke about lust, different degrees of lust. And then he gave those 3 analogies of the fire covered by smoke, the mirror covered by dust, and the embryo covered by the womb. So you see, so greater the influence of the lower modes, then less is the freedom. So just like the embryo covered by the womb, so there's hardly any freedom for the embryo. Mirror covered by dust, still, okay, with some endeavor, the dust can be removed. But then fire covered by smoke, then it's even more easier. Okay, you can blow away the smoke and use the fire. So that's how, to the degree one is in the lower modes, then the binding is more. And to the degree one comes to sattva, then the binding is less. So then he has a greater choice to make decisions. So that's how it works. But then at all times, the free will of the jiva is always there. It's never taken away. But because when one is in the lower modes, then one is so covered over that one can hardly discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. So then he's bound to make the wrong choices, even though the free will is there. All right.
I had a counter question, Ruchi, to this. So this means that okay, he might be forced to act in that way, but the free will still is there, technically speaking. So he would get the same reactions as a person who is, let's say, completely in the mode of goodness and who has greater exercise of choice. The reactions to both the people are same when presented with the same opportunity of performing a bad deed.
Yeah, so in the material world, it's all programmed. Just like in the state, whoever commits a certain crime, then he gets the same punishment, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So on the material platform, everything, just like Prabhupada, if you remember in that lecture, he gives the example of the magistrate, right? So the magistrate, he has no partiality to anyone. So, okay, somebody has committed this crime. Okay, what does the law state? And then he gives that punishment according. So in the material world, it's all like that. So it's all programmed, and everyone gets the reaction as per their action.
Okay.
Now, when one comes to devotional service, then it's a whole different situation, because then Krishna takes over. That we'll discuss later. But as far as normal people, common people in the material world are concerned, that's how it functions.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Next is by Siddharth Subhadipro again, which he had asked last time. I have posted it at 7:35 a.m. From ignorance. Yes, that one.
From ignorance, mode of goodness can't develop. Then how great devotees are born? Now, the first point that from ignorance, mode of goodness can't develop. No, that's not correct. That we have already said. We read that purport of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada is writing. By determination, by practice, anyone can rise to the mode of. It may be more difficult, agreed, but it is not impossible. It is very, very much possible. And how great devotees are born? Now that is based on the karma of that jiva. So every jiva is individual. And so somehow some jiva, for whatever reason, has been attracted to a certain mother and father. But ultimately, It's based on the karma of that particular jiva. What was the situation in the last life, and whether it was. So it's all based on that. So therefore, every jiva is separate, and so therefore we find so many cases. Sometimes children become devotees, parents don't become devotees. Sometimes parents are devotees, children don't become devotees. So we find all permutations and combinations. Why? Because everything is based on that individual jiva's sukruti and his influence by the modes and use of free will. So many factors are there, but the fact remains that ultimately every jiva is individual. All right. If jiva has a material desire, one supersoul sanctions it, Prakriti is doing it. Now if jiva wants to. Hey, we discussed this.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. He posted the question again. We discussed it.
Okay.
Go to the next one.
So how is it possible for the jiva to become transcendent situated without actively endeavoring in the three modes? No. We are situated in the material body. Material body means three modes. So we have to use whatever we have. With whatever we have to perform devotional service. So we have this body influenced by the modes, and we have to use that in Krishna's service. And then to the degree we are serious in our Krishna consciousness, then to that degree we make progress. And then of course, in devotional service, we have an additional support factor, and that is Krishna's mercy. So just like that story we are well aware of the sparrow trying to dry up the ocean. Now, impossible task for the sparrow. There's no question of doing it. But then that attracted the mercy of Garuda, and then the job was done. So similarly for us also, in the material world, for most of us, we are so bound by the modes. To progress very much in Krishna consciousness is definitely difficult. Of course, again, taking into consideration various factors. But then in general, we're talking about in general, the influence of the modes is there, and the modes present so many obstacles. But then again, if one is sincere and serious in the practice of devotional service, then Krishna's mercy acts. And then by Krishna's mercy, things can become more easy. Of course, Krishna's mercy comes through Guru's mercy and the Vaishnava's mercy. Does it help?
I says yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, now where it is hardly possible to meet or communicate with the spiritual master, how to get guidance, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Do we accept it? That's, well, the guidance of Srila Prabhupada is available in his books, in his lectures, conversations, morning walks. So many things are there now by the grace of his disciples who recorded everything. So we have all that available. And the same thing applies to spiritual master also. So we have the lectures, we have recording. So many things are there. So even though there may not be direct meeting, anyway, even if there's direct meeting, what special is going to come? We have tough time following all the instructions which have already been given. Why do we want more? First, let us try to follow what already has been given. Of course, if one gets a chance to meet and inquire, that's good, but it's not an absolute must. Many Prabhupada disciples hardly had association of Srila Prabhupada, but they followed Prabhupada's instructions and made progress. Okay. If anger is utilized in service of the Lord, is it still understood as activity performed in the mode of nature? No. If it's totally used in the service of the Lord, just like Arjuna. Arjuna was fighting. Fighting requires some Rajagun, but then it was used 100% in the service of the Lord according to Krishna's instructions. Then it becomes transcendental. Other example Prabhupada gives us Hanuman, burning Lanka. So when it's totally done for the service of the Lord, then it's not within the modes. Then it's purified. In Bhagavad Gita 14:26, if one is fully engaged in devotional service, why Srila Prabhupada does say he will go back to Godhead, but mentions. Yes, comes to the level of Brahman means he's purified. He's purified like Brahman. Brahman is pure states. So coming to the level of Brahman means pure states. That's all. How materially satisfied people, mode of goodness, will get attracted to bhakti. So therefore you have to preach. You have to preach, discomfort the comforted. Tell them, material world, miserable place. One day, your comfortable situation will be terminated and you'll have to get out of the body. And then who knows what will happen. And then again, next body, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, even if it is a human body, even if it is body of philosopher, scientist, whatever, but still, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So therefore, one has to preach. Huh? So Venimada Prabhu is already doing a lot of preaching, isn't it? Okay, that's it?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Good. Very good. So we're starting the 15th chapter, all right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so now the audio is clear?
Audio is very clear now.
Okay, so now let's share the screen and see what happens. Hare Krishna, is it okay?
Yes. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Lord Krishna's grace, everything is fine. Okay, so chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. So again, a short chapter, 20 verses, 4 sections, 1 to 5, banyan tree, transmigration, 6 to 11, Krishna's maintain it from 12 to 15, and summary of the Vedanta Sutra, 16 to 20. First 5 verses are describing the banyan tree. Okay, let's recite the first verse. Shri Bhagavan Ovacha Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandam Siyasya Parnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavit. The Supreme Personality of God had said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Okay, somebody could try and figure out what's the connection between the previous chapter and this chapter. Why all of a sudden this banyan tree? Huh? Hare Krishna? Could you
Yes,
hear
Prabhuji.
the
Yes,
question was
yes.
clear?
Yes, Prabhuji, question was clear.
Okay, fine. So what's the connection between the previous chapter and this chapter?
Prabhuji, we spoke about this 3 modes of nature, and this material world is, or even the material body is composed of these 3 modes of nature. So how to know, like what is the extent of it, and then how to get out of it and things like that.
Okay, good. Okay, I think so. That's yes, that's right. Somebody saying something else? Okay, fine. So, okay, so just read from the screen, somebody. This Vishnu Thakur's.
The 15th chapter states that detachment is the cause of cessation of birth, that the soul is an amsha of the Lord, and that Krishna is superior to matter and the jiva. The second to last verse of the chapter stated that the second to last verse of the last chapter stated that by Bhakti Yoga one can attain the status of Brahman. Mam chayo abhya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samiti thaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. The question may be asked, how does a person attain impersonal Brahman by Bhakti Yoga rendered to the Lord who possesses a human form? True, I am human in form, but I am also the basis of Brahman, the supreme shelter of Brahman. The statement, which functions as a sutra, forms the beginning of the 15th chapter.
Yes.
But could
Okay,
not
fine.
able to understand who you can give a little.
Yeah, so basically, as we discussed last time, so that Krishna is saying that one will Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, so that means basically one will come to the Brahman platform, and therefore the next verse he clarifies that I am the basis of the Brahman. So, so therefore, then how one can achieve that state, how one can achieve the Brahman state, or how one can achieve the Supreme Lord, how one can transcend the modes. So that is the basis of the 15th chapter. All right?
Okay, Boo.
Okay, fine. Anybody has any? So basically here, Krishna is going to now, first of all, explain the material world, which he compares to a banyan tree. So can anyone guess, or does someone know why Krishna specifically compares the material world to a banyan tree? Why not any other tree? Why not the people tree? Why not the mango tree? All these are auspicious trees. Why does it compare it to the banyan tree?
Devotees can raise hands for contributing.
Okay, Vikas Rana Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, I think because the banyan tree's roots are hanging downside, like the material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world.
Okay, good. Okay, good. That's a good point. Material world is perverted reflection of spiritual world. Good. Some other thoughts?
Yes. Venadari Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, I can hear you.
Yeah, the banyan tree also has the quality of expanding unlimitedly. So there is no end to the action and reaction process of the jiva in the material world, and it also expands unlimitedly.
Okay, good. Okay, good. That's also a good point.
Mallikarjun Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The roots of banyan tree are very deep.
So?
Similarly, our tendencies are also in the material world are also very deep. Conditioning is very deep.
Okay, deep conditionings. Okay, that's also a good point. Arjun Sakapur had something, I think.
Yes. Achyut Prabhu.
No, Venudhari Prabhu already said what I wanted to say.
Okay,
so
fine.
Expansive that it is difficult to figure out where it starts, where it ends. Practically.
Right. Okay.
Shrikant.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes,
Prabhu. So the twigs, the banyan tree has twigs, and many. So the analogy is easy to give more details. So that's why the banyan tree is used here.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So can we read Srila Prabhupada's purport?
Yes. Anand Prabhuji.
For the purport, right? True?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another, to another, to another. The tree of this material world has no end, and for one who's attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. This tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. Shall I read the next one, please?
Yes, yes. If you're tired, you can read half and somebody else can read half.
No problem. This process of extrication should be understood. In the previous chapters, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of this material entanglement. And up to the 13th chapter, we have seen that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotional service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. The process of breaking attachment to the material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upward. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represents the results of the living entities' activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Now, there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its root upward. But there is such a thing. That tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. This tree, being the reflection of the real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalists take Brahman to be the root of this material tree. And from the root, according to Sankhya philosophy, some Prakriti, Purusha, and the three gunas, then the three gross elements, Pancha Maha Bhuta, then the 10 senses, Dasenendriya, mind, etc. In this way, they divide up the whole material world into 24 elements. If Brahman is the center of all manifestations, then this material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees, and the other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. The material world is the perverted reflection, so the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness. But in reality, the Prakriti is the external energy of the Supreme Lord, and the Purusha is the Supreme Lord himself, and that is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Since this manifestation is material, it is temporary. A reflection is temporary, for it's sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. But the origin from whence the reflection is reflected is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who's attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. He does not exactly know the purpose of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas, as disclosed by the personality of God himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world.
Okay, thank you. So, Srila Prabhupada himself is explaining why the material world is compared to the banyan tree. In the beginning of the second paragraph, he says that, as many of you have given these answers, for one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there's no end to the banyan tree. Wanders from one branch to another, to another, to another. The tree of this material world is no end. And for one who is attached to this tree, there's no possibility of liberation. And so that's what we were discussing, how one gets bound by the modes, and then it's simply a process of action, reaction, which is going on since time immemorial. And so just like the banyan tree is very complicated, so similarly, one's entanglement in this material world is very complex. To get out is very difficult. And then the other point, Prabhupada is explaining that how the just like there is a reflection of the tree within the water. So similarly, the material world is the reflection of the spiritual world. Okay, so now, okay, first of all, let us discuss this point about why the banyan tree or the Ashwatha tree. Okay, so Vishwanath Thakur makes a few additional points. So therefore, now read from the screen.
Deepak, Dipali Mataji.
You said that the devotee surpassing the gunas, saguna samatiteya, attains the status of Brahman. What is this material world made of the gunas? From where did it begin? Who is that jiva who surpasses samsara by devotion to you? You also spoke of the jiva being qualified for Brahman. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. What is that Brahman? And who are you, the basis of the Brahman? Anticipating these questions, the Lord now speaks first with use of a metaphor. The material world made of gunas is compared to an Ashwatha tree. Above all planets in Satyaloka lives four-headed Brahma, who is the one root of the tree of the material world, and who is composed of Mahatattva, the first sprout from Prakriti.
Urdhva Mula. So Urdhva Mula, as Krishna is saying, Urdhva Mula Ada Shakam. So Urdhva Mula means the main roots of this tree, which is upwards. So that's sprouting from the Mahatattva. The Mahatattva, as we know, is the basic source of the entire material existence. And so that's compared to the Urdhva Mula, the first root, the Mahatattva, and then all the various planetary systems beginning from Brahmaloka, which are there, of course, within Mahatattva. Okay, now go ahead.
The branches of the tree are below, composed of Devas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, Asuras, Rakshasas, Pretas, Bhutas, humans, cows, horses, and such beasts, birds, insects, worms, moths, and immobile creatures at the bottom, in the realms of Swaha, Bhuva, and Bhuloka. This Ashwatthama tree is the best tree because it lets one fulfill one's goal of Artha, Dharma, Kama, and Moksha. But according to the viewpoint of Bhakti, Ashwa means that which will not last till tomorrow. A equals to not. Swaha is tomorrow. Ashwatha therefore means that which is bound to perish. For the non-devotees, however, it appears to be indestructible. Avyayam. Because they expand the boundage of the material world, they are called the leaves. Paranani. With these leaves, the tree becomes attractive. He who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas.
Okay, fine. So here he gives an explanation of the word Ashwatha and why the material world is compared to the Ashwatha tree. So Ashwatha, means not and Shwa means tomorrow. And so therefore Ashwatha means that which will not last till tomorrow. It's going to perish. So the material world is temporary. That's the basic point. The point is that the material world is temporary. It's going to perish at a certain point of time. And of course, but he says for the non-devotees, it appears to be indestructible, avyayam. So avyayam can be said to have two meanings. One meaning is, of course, from the viewpoint of the materialists, they think we're going to live eternally, we're going to enjoy eternally. And so that's the illusory conception of the materialistic people. And the other, which we also discussed, is that Prakriti by itself is eternal. As the energy of the Supreme Lord, Prakriti by itself is eternal. So that's also the meaning of avyayam. So Ashwatha basically means not tomorrow. It will not last till tomorrow. Now some devotees also give another meaning of Ashwatha from the viewpoint of the devotees. So for the devotees also, the material existence will not last. because they'll go back to the spiritual world. So that's the meaning for the devotees. For the devotees also, the material world is temporary, and after quitting the material world, they go back to the spiritual world. So in any case, the material world is temporary, and so that's one meaning of Ashwatha, not last till tomorrow. One senior devotee wants to give another meaning of the word Ashwatha. Ashwatha also means a horse. And so, I don't know how many of you have noticed, but I saw it once. But if you, maybe you can study horses. But it said that a horse stands on 3 legs. So when the horse is just standing, so you'll see one leg is bent, and it usually stands on three legs. And so therefore, this is compared to the entire creation, which is 3/4 spiritual world, 1/4 material worlds. So that's another explanation given by one devotee. So that's also true. Okay, fine. So now the leaves are compared to the Vedic hymns. So just like what makes the tree beautiful? The leaves. If the leaves are not there, just like after winter, you'll see all the leaves fall down, then there's only branches. The tree doesn't look beautiful, isn't it? So it's the leaves that make the tree beautiful. So therefore, the leaves have been compared to the Vedic hymns, which also sound very beautiful and attractive. And that's the leaves, they're compared to that. But towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada writes that but if one who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree, he does not exactly know the purpose of the Vedas. Okay. So then, if one is simply attracted to the leaves, then he remains attached to the tree. Then he remains entangled within the tree of the material world. That's what happens to the karmakandis who are simply attracted to the Vedic hymns. But the real purpose of the tree is to actually cut down the tree, to understand the Supreme Lord. And that's what Prabhupada writes. The purpose of the Vedas is disclosed with the personality of God himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual worlds. Another important point is that the water on which the reflection is there, the water on which the reflection is there is compared to desire. We also discussed that point, and that is because desire is the root cause of material existence. So therefore, the water is compared to desire. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated in desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated in water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material world. So this is there within your handbooks, this diagram of the banyan tree. The other parts of the banyan tree are discussed in the further verses. So let's go to the second verse now. Okay, we are not reciting the verse, we'll just read the translation. The branches of this tree extend downward and upwards, nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. Okay, so you can see in the diagram. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Okay, somebody read the purport.
Ankur Prabhuji.
The description of banyan tree is explained here. Its branches spread in all directions. In the lower parts, there are variegated manifestations of living entities, human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas on the upper part are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, Gandharvas, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water. and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, where particular mode of material nature are proportionally greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly. The twigs of the tree are considered to be the sense objects. By development of the different modes of nature, we develop different senses, and by the sense, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The tips of the branches are the senses, the ears, nose, eyes, etc., which are attached to the enjoyment of different sense objects. The twigs are sound, form, touch, and so on, the other sense objects. The subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. The tendency towards piety and impiety, piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots, which spread in all directions. The real root is from Brahmaloka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary systems, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma or fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human being is considered the field of activities.
Okay, so this is basically a description of the tree, and that's basically what's the material worlds. So in the material world, there are the senses, then there are sense objects to enjoy, and and then one is performing pious activities, impious activities. Then based upon that, one gets the reactions. So then there is suffering and sense enjoyment. So this is basically material existence. So the whole tree is basically describing material existence. Okay, so we are going ahead to the third and the fourth verses. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down the strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. So that's the important line that Krishna says at the end, the last line of the third verse. Asanga shastrena dridena chitva. One must cut the tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and they surrender to that supreme personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. Okay, so the main thing is to cut down the tree. Okay, this is Prabhupada's lecture on the verse. Somebody read this from the screen.
Sakipiram Prabhuji,
Just like if you have to keep yourself, the legs are up and the head down, somebody keeps you like this, how long will you feel comfortable? If somebody takes your legs and catches you, your head down, then it is not very comfortable. So this whole material world is like that, Urdhva Moolam. The Moolam should have been down, but it is up. Therefore, it is uncomfortable.
Continue.
Another explanation is it is a perverted reflection. We have got experience of the Urdhva Moolam on the bank of a river or the river bank of a pond. Tree is standing, but the reflection, we find that the same tree has become Urdhva Moolam and Adashakam. So by this statement, Krishna says that this is not real. That reflection in the water of the tree is not real. Real tree is up. Similarly, real enjoyment, real varieties, everything is in the spiritual world. It is simply reflection. It is not fact. Therefore, our enjoyment here is called Maya or illusion.
Okay, so the real tree is the spiritual world and real enjoyment is there. So Prabhupada also gives the example that just like if there's a mango tree, okay, so now it's mango season. So if there's a mango tree on the bank of a river and there's a reflection in the water and one sees the mangoes within the water and one jumps into the water to get the mangoes, one is obviously not going to get the mangoes. So one will simply suffer jumping into the river. So similarly, material worlds, how much one tries, there is not going to be real enjoyment. So that is in the spiritual worlds. Okay, fine. So now read this purport to verses 3 and 4.
Shall I read the purport?
Yes.
It is now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world. Since the root is upwards, the extension of the real tree is at the other end. When entangled with the material expansion of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends. No one can see the beginning of this tree, yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is greater, who is generated by Garbhodakasaya Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of the research work. One has to search out the origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality. And by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. The word asanga is very important in this connection because the attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. Therefore, one must learn detachment by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures. And one must hear from the persons who are actually in knowledge. As a result of such a discussion in the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the first thing one must do is surrender to him. The description of that place whence having gone, one never returns to this false reflected tree is given here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original root from whom everything has emanated. To gain the favor of the Personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender, and this is the result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc. He is the cause of the extension of the material world. This has already been explained by Lord himself. Aham sarvasya prabhava. I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the strong banyan tree of the material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension.
Okay, thank you. So here, the actual root of the tree is Krishna himself, because Krishna is Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. He is the source of everything, material and spiritual. So Prabhupada did give this example quite often that so if one goes on finding out who is the father, then who's the father of the father, like that, if it goes on, then ultimately one comes to a point that is of the Supreme Lord who has no father. And so therefore, the Supreme Lord is one who himself has no father, yet he is the father of everyone else. So Prabhupada in a lecture, he says, so if there is someone claiming to be God, then you ask him, do you have father? And the moment he says he has father, then he's not God, he's dog. So therefore the point is that yes, Krishna is the original father of everyone, therefore is the original root of entire existence. Now, so the entire tree is compared to the material world, and one has to get out of this tree of material existence. So just like to cut down a tree, one needs a weapon, Shastra. That's a weapon. So similarly here, the weapon for cutting down this tree is Asanga. Asanga Shastrena Dridena Chitva. So Prabhupada is explaining this, that the word Asanga is very important because the attachment for sense enjoyment, lording it over the material nature is very strong. So that's what we were talking about, the three modes. So the three modes are tightly binding the living entity in this material world because of the original desire of the living entity to enjoy lording it over material nature. So the tendency is very strong, very deep. And needless to say, we all have experienced that how even after coming to devotional service, the tendency for enjoyment remains quite deep-rooted. That's the root cause of material existence. And so therefore, Dhrudena, the word Dhrudena is used. Dhrudena means with great determination. With great determination, one has to use the weapon of detachment to cut down this tree. So how does one develop that detachment? Prabhupada is explaining here. One must learn detachment by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures. And one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. Okay? So Prabhupada is very beautifully explaining this point, how to develop detachment. So the first thing is philosophical discussion. So because without that philosophical discussion based on scriptures, there is no basis for developing the detachment. Because if the philosophical basis for detachment is not there, then that will be sentimental detachment. Prabhupada did speak about Smashan Vairagya. So people go to the crematorium when somebody dies and they see the body burning. And so then some detachment develops. Oh, material life is temporary. But then, as soon as they come back home, forgotten. Then immediately they begin to discuss how to divide the property. So that is Smashan Vairagya. I think in a previous class, maybe I told that story about how there was one old man who was not developing detachment, and he had a cloth shop. So he had a cloth shop, and now the sons were grown up, they were maintaining the cloth shop, but the old man was so attached, he was still interfering with the business. And so the sons were sort of fed up with the interference, and so they thought, let's take the father for a Tirtha Yatra, and maybe he'll develop some detachment. And so they went to various tirthas, holy places, and so at a particular place, maybe in Varanasi, they have this ghat where they burn the dead bodies. And so anyway, they came to the crematorium where they were burning the dead bodies, and so then as the old man was seeing the dead bodies burning, so then tears were coming to his eyes. And the sons were very happy. They thought, oh, the process is working. The process is working. Finally, he's developing some detachment. And so they saw for some time after, as they were moving away, so the sons asked the old man, so what happened? There were some tears in your eyes. What happened? So the man said, oh, I've wasted my whole life. I've wasted my whole life. So the sons were even more happy. They thought, oh, finally he has realized the futility of material existence. Oh, great. And then the man said, oh, I wasted my whole life. If only I had a business for wood, I would have made so much of money. And the sons thought, oh, no. So that's how the attachments in this world are so deep-rooted that even to the point of death, one is still thinking of how to earn money and enjoy the world. So that is Smashan Vairagya. So people develop some temporary detachment, maybe when there's death of some relative, close friends, or there is some loss in the business, something like that. Then people develop some temporary detachment. But then that type of detachment doesn't last. Now, the other type of detachment, which is substantial and real, is the detachment of the jnanis and yogis. So the jnanis and yogis also, they're trying to develop that detachment from the body because they definitely have that philosophical understanding. Material world is temporary, the body is temporary, the spirit soul is aham brahmasmi, I'm spirit soul, that is eternal. So they have that philosophical understanding, and so to develop detachment from the body, then they practice very severe austerities. Prabhupada says, like in the summers, they surround themselves with 5 fires, 4 fires all around, 1 fire from the top, the blazing sun. And in winters, they dip themselves in ice cold waters up to the neck. So in that way, they try to develop strong detachments. They give up all that is material, no luxuries, no comforts, go to the Himalayas and things like that. So those are severe austerities of the jnanis and yogis. They're trying to cultivate detachment. But then even that detachment doesn't last, because that's also Falgu Vairagya. Because there is something incomplete in their philosophical understanding. What is that? Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. So that is Falgu Vairagya, because Prapanchikataya means material vision. For Hari Sambandhi Vastuna, the whole material world is Hari Sambandhi Vastuna. The whole material world is in relation to Hari. But they give it up thinking it to be material. So that is their philosophy. Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. But as Prabhupada explains, how can the material world be mithya? How can it be false? It is coming from the absolute truth. It has to be truth. It can't be false. But then that is the flaw in their philosophy. They think it is false and therefore it needs to be given up, thinking it to be material. But no, it is Hari Sambandhi. It is coming from Hari. It is coming from the Supreme Law. That's what we are reading. The actual root is Hari. So because there is a flaw in their philosophical understanding, therefore their detachment also doesn't last. And so there's every chance for them also to fall down from their detachment. So therefore, the proper discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures, and one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. So that means the detachment has to be based on a proper philosophical understanding, who actually understand things as they are. So from the Tattva Darshana, from one who understands the Tattva. So there has to be discussion, mananam, as Lord Kapila says in the 3rd canto, Satam Prasangan Mama Vidya Samvido. So Satam Prasangan, so in the association of devotees, there has to be some churning, there has to be some discussion as we're doing it now. But again, it's not mental speculation. So as Prabhupada says, armchair speculators, they sit in their armchairs and they're also discussing. But then it's all mental speculation, it's not philosophical speculation. So I think this and you think this. So that type of discussion will not help. But then discussion which is based on authoritative scriptures and hearing from persons who are bona fide in parampara. So that type of discussion, that type of hearing is what is required. Okay, now the next question arises. So is that philosophical discussion sufficient to develop the detachment? And so that's why in the previous verses we read, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam, Anudarshanam, having a proper understanding of the miseries of material existence. And so we find Srila Prabhupada also in so many of his lectures, he describes and discusses the miseries of material existence, how one can never get rid of the miseries. So that sort of philosophical discussion about the nature of the material world, the miseries of the material world, that is required. But is that sufficient? No, that is not sufficient. In in of itself, it is not sufficient. Therefore, the next line Prabhupada writes is, as a result of such discussion in the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That should be the result of the discussion. Not simply one discusses, oh, material world is miserable, material world is miserable. That is what the Jnanis and Yogis do. Yes, they are simply talking about the miseries of material existence. But as Prabhupada writes, we read that sentence, if you remember, verses 8 to 12 purport, that one must develop a pessimistic attitude towards the material world so that one gets an impetus to practice devotional service. That's the purpose. So the purpose of this discussion is so that one gets an impetus to practice devotional service, one comes closer to the Supreme Lord. So therefore, both aspects have to be there. And that's what Srila Prabhupada, in all his lectures, we find both these aspects. There are the aspects of detachment from the material worlds, by understanding the miseries of material existence, and at the same time understanding the beauty of the Supreme Lord, the beauty of the spiritual world, the beauty of the Lord's pastimes. So this is called Anartha Nivrutti and Artha Prapti. So both the aspects have to be there. So we discuss about the anarthas of the material worlds, but at the same time, we also talk of what is actually meaningful, artha, and how to achieve that. So both the aspects have to be there. So the detachment must lead to attachment to the Supreme Lord. So we are not just trying to give up, but we are at the same time trying to get attached to the Supreme Lord. And so when that attachment to the Supreme Lord becomes very strong, and we develop the higher taste, param drishtva nivartate, so then the detachment becomes very easy. Not only becomes easy, but it becomes long-lasting. The detachment will be stable, unlike the detachment of the Jnanis and the Yogis, which is unstable. So therefore, this philosophical discussion of the material world and the miseries of the material existence must lead to an inspiration, impetus to practice devotional service seriously and develop attachment to the Supreme Lord, by which the miseries of material existence will be insignificant. And so therefore, that's the purpose of developing the detachment. Ultimately, the purpose is to develop attachment to the Supreme Lord. And so in a practice of devotional service, both the things should go simultaneously. Not just developing the detachment and not developing attachment to Krishna. So therefore, in order to develop the attachment to Krishna, we are chanting the holy names. We're also discussing about the spiritual world, which we'll see in a few verses now. And we're also discussing about Krishna's pastimes. We're discussing Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So all this is also essential so that one develops an attachment to Krishna. And then, as Prabhupada writes, the first thing one must do is surrender to him. So when one understands that, yes, the real purpose of the detachment is attachment to Krishna, then one must surrender to him. Okay, fine. Now the next question arises, how to develop that surrender? And so the next verse is describing the process of surrender. So let's recite. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandver vimukta sukha dukkha sanyev gachantya mudha padamavyayam tat. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who unbewildered know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So here he's describing the surrendering process by which one can attain to the eternal kingdom. Okay, please read the book.
Shrikant,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not the Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor is in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false associations caused by familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge, then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay. So, as Prabhupada is writing here, the surrendering process is described here very nicely. And the first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, nirmana. And as we discussed, even when Krishna speaks about the process of knowledge, we discussed that in the 13th chapter. There also the first qualification is amanitvam, humility. And if you remember, the definition of humility Prabhupada gives there is, one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. And as Prabhupada is writing here, that because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of material nature, is very difficult for him to surrender. So why it is difficult for him to surrender? Because of moha, illusion. So as Prabhupada is explaining that what happens when one is in the state of illusion. What is the state of illusion basically? So the state of illusion is that I'm the body. So that's illusion. As Prabhupada is writing over here, pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time and goes away, he has a foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. So that's the bodily concepts. So the bodily concept is that yes, I'm this body and I'm such an important person. So he's misidentifies with the designations of the body and everything else related to the body. So that's the moha, that's the illusion, which is the root cause of material existence, the bodily concept, that's the ahankar, thinking I am this body. So one doesn't realize that everything of this material world, including this very body, is temporary. And so, as the second canto of the Bhagavatam is describing, Shukadeva Goswami describes, Deha Patya Kalatradishu Atma Saineshu Asatsvapi Tesham Pramatta Nidhanam Pashyanapi Napashyati. So that's material life. So Prabhupada describes, so first of all, Deha. So one thinks, I will have a strong body, and with a strong body, I'll get whatever I want. And then with a strong body, when I have a strong body, I will not die. I can protect myself. And Prabhupada in one lecture is describing. So people, they develop strong bodies because this is what they think. If I have a strong body, I'll live eternally. I'll not die. And Prabhupada says, But Yamaraj doesn't make any distinction. Who is strong, who is weak. And he says, maybe Yamaraj will first take the strong fellow, leave the weak fellow. So ultimately, there's no distinction. Strong or weak, everyone has to die. As sure as death. Mrityu sarva harasyaham. But that's the illusion which Maya puts everyone into, thinking, oh, I'll develop the body, I'll protect myself. So there's deha, apatya, relatives, friends, wife, children. So one thinks Atma Sainishu. One thinks these are all my soldiers. So Prabhupada says, so in the fight against material existence, in the fight against the distresses of material existence, these are my soldiers. They will help me in my fights. But the fact is, they are all asat. They're all temporary. They can't even protect themselves. What to speak of protecting anybody else? But Tesham Pramatta. The man is Pramatta. He's mad. He's illusioned, and therefore he cannot see all this. Nidhanam, he doesn't see that Nidhanam means annihilation. They're all going to die. And Prabhupada explains that purport. So everyone is saying, this person is dying, that person is dying, my grandfather is dying, grandmother is dying, so many people are dying, but still the person thinks, I will stay forever. Therefore, he's called Pramatta. Pashyana Pina Pashyati. He's seeing everyone around is dying. And what to speak of now? We are hearing every day hundreds of people are dying. Hundreds of people are dying. Of course, they're always dying, but now it has become more prominent, that's all. But always they're dying, every day. But still, one thinks, oh, so many others will die, but I will not die. And so it is this misidentification with the body due to which the person is proud. So he thinks, I'm great. What's his greatness? The next second he can die. What is his greatness? Even it could be prime minister, president. So we have enough examples within our own country of great prime ministers being shot dead by their own bodyguards. So how much ever great one may be, what is one's position in this material world? So insignificant, so insignificant. At any moment one can die. So what's the point in becoming proud of anything that I have? At any point of time I can die. At any point of time whatever I have can be stripped away. But due to illusion one thinks, oh, I'm so great. That's the illusion. That's the moha. And therefore, as Prabhupada says, the foolish notion that he's the Lord of the worlds, and thus he makes all things complicated and is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society. They've divided the land under the false impression that they're proprietors. In one of the class, I think so I did mention, Prabhupada, he says about Hindu-Muslim rights. So Hindus and Muslims are fighting, but at the end of the day, the municipal van comes, picks up all the bodies and burns them. Then who's Hindu, who's Muslim? So all bodily concepts. So these faulty associations, Jita Sangha Dosha. So this is Sangha Dosha. So these are all false notions that exist in the Sangha, in the human society. So Prabhupada writes, when one is freed from such a false notion, then he becomes free from all the false associations caused by familial, social, national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. So the process of surrender is to give up these false associations, to give up these false notions, Chitta Sanga Dosha, Jita. One has to conquer over all these false notions, over all these doshas, these faults. So one has to Adhyatma Nitya Vinivritta Kamaha. So one has to acquire spiritual knowledge and understand that I'm not this body. I'm Nitya, I'm eternal. And thus one has to Vinivritta Kama. One has to become free from lust, the enjoying mentality which binds one to this material world, become vimukta, become liberated from the dvandva, the dualities of material existence, sukha and dukkha. And so this is the process. So all this is of course possible when one gives up the bodily conception of life. And so to the degree one understands that I am eternal soul, part and parcel of Krishna, my business is to serve Krishna. To the degree one understands that, then one can give up all the false associations, one can give up all the enjoying mentality, one can give up the dualities, and then one can surrender to the Supreme Lord. As a result of that, Gachanti, one will achieve what? Who will achieve? The amudha. The mudas can't achieve. The mudas who are bewildered by the bodily concept, they cannot achieve. Amudha. Those who are not fools, those who are not foolish, they will achieve what? Padam Avyayam. The eternal situation of the spiritual world, the eternal kingdom, will be achieved by such amudha, unbewildered people. So that's the process of surrender. Okay. So anyway, I don't know, there was one lecture, Prabhupada is saying, just like he gives the example of the dog. So even the dog is thinking, oh, I'm the dog, and he's barking, thinking, I'm owning this territory. Any other dog comes, he barks, bow, wow, get out. So even the dog is thinking, I'm great. And so similarly, even amongst human beings, they are thinking, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that, but it's the same bodily misconception. And so the dog may think, I'm the proprietor of this territory, no other dog can come, nobody else can come. But then you throw a stone at the dog, he goes away. So similarly, people may claim, this is my territory, this is mine, and so on. But then how long? One point of time, they're going to be out. The land will remain. They are going to be out. So all these are misconceptions due to moha illusion. And so understanding the reality of material existence, one has to surrender to the Supreme Lords, develop the detachment from this material worlds, and by doing so, one can achieve the spiritual worlds, which is the actual tree, the real tree, where we belong to, and not this false reflected tree, which is simply a place of suffering. Okay, so that's the description of the banyan tree that Krishna is giving over here. That's the material worlds and how to get out of this material worlds. Okay, fine. So we have a few minutes left. Maybe we could take one or two questions.
Yes, Prabhuji, there are four questions. First one is by Satyajivan Gaur Prabhu, asked at 8:12 a.m.
Where is it?
It is asked at 8:12 a.m. Prabhuji. As stated, material world is reflection of spiritual world.
I don't see any questions here.
Okay. I'll post it again, Prabhuji, in that case. Can you see it now, Prabhuji? The last, I've just posted it.
No, I didn't get.
In chat. All right, I'll read it out loud, Prabhuji.
Okay, read, okay, fine.
Yes. As stated, material world is reflection of spiritual world. Then what are the branches in spiritual world? Meaning, do pretas, bhutas, worms, etc. exist in spiritual world?
No, obviously not. They're all are spiritual. So, well, there is variety in the spiritual worlds. There are trees, rivers, all these things are there. But They're all spiritual. They're sentient, conscious. So obviously, bhutas, pretas are not going to be there. But then there is variety, and we know different rasas and all that. But then it's all spiritual. Okay.
Next is, I hope Satyaji and Gaurapuji, that's okay. You can post if further questions. Next is by Nishant Prabhuji. Why banyan tree is upward and can't be the same? Kindly explain.
What? Why banyan?
I'm unmuting him. He can ask the question.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I mean, that time a question was that its banyan tree root is upward in material world. I was just thinking basic question, why it cannot be like Brahmaji's Satyaloka is representing the root in material world. Why it cannot be downward, just like, even though it's perverted, but what is upward to downward mean here?
Upward means, so basically that's what's a reflection, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you have a tree on the bank of a river, what do you see in the reflection? You see the tree, you see the root up, isn't it? And the branches down. So therefore, so what's up is the root. So that's the source. So the source is Krishna himself and then Brahmaji. So from them everything comes. So therefore that's the source.
So in material world, actually, we don't see it that way. We don't see the source. We think the leaves and the twigs are the source.
Yeah, so that's the illusion.
Yeah.
That's the illusion created by Maya. We don't see the source. That's our problem.
Got it, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
you. Next, Prabhuji, Satyaji on Kotpu has a counter question. I'm unmuting him so that he can ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, that you said that that the worms and insects is not available in the spiritual world. Then how it become the reflection, Prabhuji? Can you please explain? Because reflection meaning whatever is there in the spiritual, same thing is reflected in the material world, but the consciousness could be different. But the species, what is there in the material world, should be there in the spiritual world.
Species may be there, but I was saying bhutas and pretas are not there, but various species could be there. Like birds are there, maybe even insects are there, but then they're all on the having a spiritual consciousness.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we go to the next question?
Yes.
Okay. Prabhuji, Shyam Chaitanya Prabhuji is requesting for putting the last slide, the last part of 1 to 5.
This one?
I'm not sure which one he's asking.
Anyway, what's the okay? We'll show the slides later.
Okay. We'll go to the next question, Prabhuji. That is by Anand Prabhuji. Banyan tree is perverted reflection of spiritual world, and its parts are clearly labeled as in material world. How does the tree look like in spiritual world?
Well, the spiritual world is not described in the form of a tree exactly, but then basically everything is there in the spiritual world. That's the point. So see, one should try to understand the analogy. One can't find exact corresponding things in the sense that everything is there in the spiritual world. At the same time, the perverted reflection means that everything is being used for a wrong purpose. And so therefore, just like the sense objects. The sense objects are there in the material world. The sense objects are there in the spiritual world also, but then they're in the material world, they're used for sense gratification. There, they're used for serving Krishna. So everything is there in the spiritual world, but then there's a basic difference in consciousness. Was it the question, or what exactly is the question?
Anand Prabhuji, I'm unmuting you. You can ask.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. I think you nailed it, Prabhu. The only question I had was like, you have this 3 modes of material nature. We describe branches, we describe twigs. So I was trying to see what is the equivalent of that in spiritual world, when they represent that as the tree which we see in the material world.
Yeah. So just like we have Mahamaya here, there's Yogamaya. Okay, so that's the spiritual energy of the Lord. And here, of course, the same spiritual energy in the material world is Mahamaya. And so similarly, everything is there in the spiritual world, but there's a basic difference in the consciousness. That makes the whole difference.
Sure, Prabhu.
All right. Okay, fine. So that's the end of the questions.
We have just two more questions.
Okay,
We have
quick.
one is by Siddharth Subhadi Prabhu. It's a long one. In the material world, there are many activities one needs to
Can you
perform.
get to the essence of that?
Okay, different training, skills development, etc. to survive and do well in different fields. One has to perform the activities sincerely. Then different competitions arise. It is seen in both devotional service and material activities also. Then again, one is trapped into illustrations. Then it becomes confusing to what extent one should perform certain activities and get detached from the activities. Please explain, Prabhuji. That is the question.
Okay, it's on detachment. Okay, maybe we could take that question next time.
All right, Prabhuji. Okay, and then there's a last one by Shrikant Srinivas Prabhuji. He's asking, can we say the desire is the river on which we are seeing the reflection of the tree from spiritual world?
Yeah, so desire is like, yes, desire is compared to the surface, because just like the surface is like the boundary between the spiritual and the material world. So desire is the basis for either remaining in the material world or surrendering to the Supreme Lord and going back to the spiritual world. So desire is the cause for either ways. So that's why desire is like the water or the boundary between the material and the spiritual.
He says okay.
Fine. Okay. So that's it. So we'll end for today. And what about tomorrow? Should we have a class?
Harikshit Prabhuji.
I think so, Prabhu. We can have like day after tomorrow. We told like we will not have.
Right. Mm.
What is your choice, Prabhu?
What's that?
What is your choice, Prabhu?
See, of course, tomorrow is Ekadashi. I also, because I'm staying in a proper ISKCON temple with Guru Puja and Darshan and everything. So I was thinking, at least on Ekadashi, I should take part in the temple programs.
Okay, Prabhuji. So, then as you like, Prabhu.
But is there a possibility of change of timing? Because anyway, there's no prasad and all that. So
I don't know, Prabhu. Devotees going to office and all.
Oh, I see.
Starting their office work and all.
Okay, office is there.
If we want, we can give it off, Prabhu, tomorrow, and then we meet on only
Thursday.
Okay, Prabhuji. We can do that.
Is it all right?
Yes, Prabhuji. We can do that, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Because I thought at least on Ekadashi I should attend the temple programs.
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay.
And Wednesday, what do you think? Wednesday would be difficult for devotees, or?
I think we can have, Prabhu, any quick suggestions from devotees.
Prabhuji, when is Paran time?
It'll. I think.
Prabhuji, tomorrow is like all the devotees are working from work from home. They can take anyhow. Everyone is doing it like some time change we can do.
Time change.
We can, so two things here, Prabhuji. I think one is if we are okay with class on Dwadashi.
It is 6, almost 5:52, 6 a.m. to this one. Okay, there is a poll that is created. Devotees can answer the poll.
Quickly, within 10 seconds, we can do it. Okay, 15.
The fast breaking is 9 or till 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. basically.
Okay. So 23 devotees have answered. I would request all the devotees to quickly just enter in the poll. We'll get to know. Okay, 72%. 27 devotees have answered so far. Please, few more. 9 more devotees are remaining. I'll end the poll in another 10 seconds. Okay, going to end it now. Okay.
Oh, most of them are okay, Prabhuji.
These are the results, Prabhuji. So far, out of 31 devotees answered, 23 are okay with class on Dwadashi, 8 are not okay.
Okay. So, of course, we can go with majority, but still the eight have some serious concerns. Huh?
So I think we can manage for like.
Okay.
So I would suggest like if devotees are thinking that they are going to be so weak, then I would suggest that they take some prasadam and get back to the service properly. That is good.
So Dwadashi here, yes, the fast breaking time is 6 o'clock and class will start from 7. Fast breaking time is from 6 to 9.
Okay, so we'll have class on Wednesday then?
Yes, Pooji.
Okay, okay. So we'll have on Wednesday. Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.